But we do have 4 board members, so we do have a quorum, and we have a lot to go over. So let's go ahead and start our meeting at 5:07. Can someone start the recording, please?
Recording in progress.
Thank you. Can I have someone make a motion to approve the budget, please? The agenda.
Yeah,
sorry.
I was like, wow, we went right into that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got my down brain. Let's-
Oh, you snuck it right in
We
there.
got budget, sweet tea.
I know, right? Sweet tea for everyone.
I
Okay.
made the motion.
To accept the agenda?
The agenda.
All right, there we go. Is there a second?
I don't know, I'm just making
All
random
right, Kevin's
motions.
seconding.
Okay.
All right. All those that approve the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, thank you for that. Communications with parents, citizens, and staff. Is there anyone here in person or anyone online who would like to address the board at this time? Okay, hearing none, I assume that's a no. We haven't had any reach out, so we will move on to our consent agenda. Someone make a motion, please, for the consent agenda?
As long as you're not trying to sneak budget in there.
There's no budget in there, I promise.
Yeah, I move we accept the consent agenda.
Okay, there's,
Or approve the consent
Okay.
agenda.
and Kevin's seconding. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. All those opposed, abstaining? Okay, consent agenda passes. All right, first thing on our list is the monitoring report for 2.8, communication and support to the board. That should be in your board packet. Is there anyone who would like to make a motion to approve the monitoring report?
I move we approve the monitoring report.
Is there a second?
Sure, second.
Okay. Any discussion regarding the monitoring report? Anything that popped out at you, something that we want to ask about?
One of the pieces that I would like to just talk about, if I can at this
Yes,
point.
absolutely.
Is that I think this is a executive limitation that's incredibly important, that the superintendent must really stay in close communication with the boards, and making sure that, because there are a lot of sub expectations within it. So if you feel free to go through and review those. But one of the things that I am working with my mentor to do, Jeannie Collins, is to reduce the amount of text that's on the front, and so that things are concise, and then there'll just be reference points. So the executive limitation reports that you'll get in the future will be much shorter, but will require you to click on links in order to access them. But it'll be much more digestible than having to read, kind of this packet.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to say? Okay, then all of those in favor of monitoring report 2.8, communication and support to the board, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstaining? 2.8 passes. Thank you for that. Moving on to governance process. Our first item up is our own board policy monitoring report 3.3, delegation to the superintendent. It should be in your packet from last year. Is there anything we need to update or anything anybody wants to add or subtract other than the dates? Hearing nothing, I'm assuming you don't want to change anything. True? Okay. Ethan, do you have anything?
Nope. I'm all set.
All right, then I will change the date on that board policy monitoring report for the delegation to the superintendent, and we will file it for this year. Okay, next item up is our RNESU policy that is a second reading. It is policy JH, Federal Child Nutrition Act Wellness Policy. Can I get someone to make a motion to approve?
So moved. I move we approve.
Okay.
Policy
JH.
JH.
Yep. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Jessica is seconding. Discussion. This is a second reading, so we have looked at it before. But this is why we do it a second time, to make sure that everything is the way you want it.
Can you remind me just why it's being revised? I just don't remember the
Sure.
the
Do you wanna take
rationale.
Yeah, there was, as the state board, well, the State Board of Education, the AOE, and the Vermont School Boards Association, we've had to make sure that we've updated our policies recently. And in this case, it was very specific with the health expectations through the educational quality standards, and we needed to make sure that we included those things within our policy.
Thank you.
So that's the new section 5.
Any other discussion? Okay, all of those in favor of JH, Federal Child Nutrition Act Wellness Policy, second reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Oh, sorry, Ethan. All those opposed? Abstaining? Great, thank you for that. All right, up next is our fiscal year 26 budget first draft. And I'm pretty sure I saw Brenda sneak in. Is
Yes.
that her back there hiding? Oh,
She needs a tutorial and a photocopier. She's pulling.
No.
all right, well, while you're doing that, would you like to give your superintendent informational report?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, let me get back on here. I just need to be able. So we've been, the couple of things that I want to highlight. So first of all is myself and Brenda and Debbie, we've been going to visit campuses to seek feedback and input about the budget from our faculties and staff on our, from our schools. We've also had superintendent coffees where we've started the morning at various locations around the supervisory union, meeting with community members, which has been extremely fun, going to select boards to talk about both the upcoming budget and the potential grant, digital equity grant that we're looking at for next year. And then more recently, we sent out a survey to parents and to school and to the schools, so that way we could seek some more direct input. Now we are creating flyers so that we can put it in high traffic areas like restaurants and the transfer station and any other places that you think might be a good place for people to capture the survey on their phone and be able to take it, because it's really not that long of a survey, shouldn't take too long. But we just need that feedback. I think it'll be critical so that when we move forward with later drafts of the budget, we'll be able to explain why we're doing what we're doing. Let's see, what else? Just really excited about the play that's starting tomorrow, which should be a whole lot of fun. Mean Girls. Make sure you get your tickets online. And congratulations to the Otter Valley football boys who made it to the finals of this year's championship. So that was awesome.
Cool. Any questions for Renee?
Yeah, I have one. This may be just me being a nostalgic parent, but your little paragraph about Halloween traditions. Up until, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, the Neshobe School did a parade in downtown Brandon. And for the parents, particularly the young kids, it was adorable, and I think the downtown merchants liked it and everything too.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering what's happened to that. If the kids got overexcited and the school lost it. But anyway, it was a lovely tradition, and I certainly was grateful for it when my son was little.
Okay, that is good to know. I'll have to look into that one. Or
I
you
can
can
tell you a
respond.
little. The first kind of disruption, if you will, was when Brandon was doing all of their renovations downtown. So that was the first sort of hiccup, if you will. And then you may or may not remember, but that was followed immediately by COVID.
Right.
And those were kind of the next hiccups. I think this year we did a different parade. You know, we didn't take over Route 7 and hold up Route 7 for the parade, but we did do a parade for the first time around the campus. But that's how it happened.
Yeah.
I don't know the solution, but that's the history.
Yeah, traditions, people think of traditions as something that never changes, but they're actually, they're very easily lost for reasons like that. So I would, again, I'm not in charge of the kids all day, obviously, but it really was a kind of wonderful thing for the community to have that happen, in my opinion.
I do know that they're planning for next year.
What are they planning?
What's that?
What are they planning?
They are planning for a parade for next year.
On Route 7 or at the school?
I'm not, I know they were planning for something larger than the school for next year.
It would be great if they did down Park Street like they used to, and then maybe not go on Route 7, but go through the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
a little-
Because they were planning something larger than what they did this year, and then they realized that they didn't have enough time to plan and safety-wise, they wanted to plan for, plan for next year. I
Right.
read that in one of the newsletters.
Cool. All right. Any other
Not-
questions
but
for
not
Renee?
completely forgotten.
Yeah.
Questions for Renee? No? Okay, Brenda, you've stalled long enough.
I know, right? It's gonna be so much easier when I just walk down the hall.
I know.
I saw Michael on the way in. I'm trying to pick my office space now.
Ooh.
Well, that's what he did, too.
I know, right?
Wow. We better
So
get going.
I think, so just to let you know that I'm a little less prepared than usual,
Okay.
but we do have a first budget draft, and Renee is pulling it up, and then I do, if you want to each take one and pass it on, I do have some paperwork for you to look at. Generally speaking, this is really this is what we know, this is what we don't know, this is where we're at, but it is not
I'll give you mine.
Okay.
the final. I can send you one too. And I'm sorry for the people online, it's not the final draft. But just to remind you of a couple of things in the timelines. There's still a lot of pieces we don't know. We don't know student count information, so we can't take this budget and assess it out to our member districts. And there's also a fair amount of revenue that will come in to offset these numbers that we don't know yet. And we'll start getting this information as soon as December 1st, December 5th. And then they kind of like fly in at me every Monday morning for the next 3 weeks. So I did kind of take last year's and update it, so I apologize in advance if there's any 25s in there. That shouldn't be, I'll try to catch them. But just as a reminder, what we have defined as SU goals, these didn't change from last year, and you're all familiar, so I won't reread them. One of the things that we heard very loud and clearly, both from the board as well as from the community, is really what is the structure of the central office and what are some of the purposes of the positions at the central office? So this is also on our website, but I did pull in the organizational charts, and again, it is linked on our website. So what this budget does include, so the central office is an administrative infrastructure, and it's used to support curriculum assessment instruction, you all, the board, which the board includes board professional development, legal, like when we have to adopt a policy that we might need legal opinion on. Most we don't, but every now and then we do. Superintendent's office, fiscal service, my office, technology, which everybody loves to hate, but we all need it to survive. And then when we talk about buildings and grounds, it's specifically just the central office building. Special education is the pre-K through 12 educational services that we provide for students who have a recognized disability. And last year, 2 years ago, this is our third year, any other regular ed extraordinary student, and an extraordinary cost student, is a student that costs more than $68,000. So we agreed that we would share the cost of those students in this budget and assess to the member districts versus putting a large cost in any one district. And then transportation. And the transportation within this budget is to and from school. So when we get to Otter Valley, there will be additional transportation for vocational education, late run, as well as everyone for field trips and things. They sit in the local budgets, but to and from school sits in the central office budget. And inside, special education is sometimes transportation. So we pass through a lot of funds from Rutland Northeast that we are entitled to. And as you know, because we've all recently gone through, and those that have gone away. So we're not talking about ESSER, hopefully ever again. But these exist and kind of continue every year. They tend to be fairly level funded. And so when they're level funded, we all know that that means essentially a reduction because the costs and services don't stay level. The majority of these expenditures are in people and personnel that support the schools. So we are entitled to, and these are this year's numbers, fiscal year 25. We won't know 26 numbers until May or June. Although last year I think they were early enough in April, but they're really like around April break or after. So we have just shy of 700,000 in Title I services, of which 25 is carryover. I'm sorry, and a 25 of carryover. So this year, we are budgeting on 723,000. We're expecting next year it will be the 698, so the 700 grand. You might hear Title I as compensatory services, and it is to support students in their learning. We put these funds into a school-wide plan, which allows us to combine the other two resources to support services on our continuous improvement plan in each of the schools. The majority investment that we make is in academic interventionists. Title IIA, 100 years ago, used to be called the Eisenhower or the Math and Science Grant. Now it's really more about overall professional development. Our base amount or our allocation this year was 190,000, and we had a carryover of 44. So in this year's budget, we're planning on spending 234,000, but in 26, we'll expect it will drop down to the 190. We put some of those funds into the school-wide plans to support the academic interventionist, and we use those funds for our, what do we call them? Well, we use it for Reading League to support ELA, professional development, and Laura's position.
Oh, for instructional coach.
Instructional coach, thank you. Title V has the most flexibility, and that's, we have, well, it doesn't really have the most flexibility. It has both some flexibility, it is the smallest pot, and it is not allowed to go into the school-wide plan. Oh, Title IV, yes, thank you. Starts at 107. We had about a $9,000 carryover. We're at 116. Medicaid, we have two little pots of Medicaid. One very small. It's called the Medicaid Administrative Claims. And this is what our guidance department bills for when they service students. We get about $25,000 a year. And we use it to support things like the nurse liaison and some wellness activities for students and staff in the schools. Then there is the bigger pot that we have affectionately in the past referred to as the golden goose, except she's done laying eggs. And this is the school-based medical services, which is a type of Medicaid fund that we get to bill based on special education services provided to students who are eligible for Medicaid. We have seen a decline in the resources in this fund because we have a lot of provisionally licensed special educators, so we're not allowed to bill for them. That's part of the labor shortage, kind of that sort of unintended consequence. Last year, we actually received $338,000 in revenue. I looked it up before. We did estimate conservatively this year that we would receive about $254,000. It's hard for me to judge yet if that will be accurate because the first quarter was much lower than usual because the state implemented a new system and we weren't allowed to bill. So it will get caught up in the second quarter, but I can't predict what that will look like. And then there are a lot of services that are purchased as pass-through. We usually call these services that cross the bridge. So when we hire a language person, for example, for Barstow and Otter Valley, we fund them in Rutland Northeast so that we can hire a full-time person, and then we bill them proportionately to Otter Valley and to Barstow based on what they're doing. So those sort of pass-through, we do that for pre-K services. We do that for library because the Barstow Librarian also services OCA. We do that for language, intervention, sometimes drivers, and then the facility management and maintenance. So a piece of Rich is shared in maintenance and a piece, the majority of him is in transportation, and that's billed based on sizes of buildings. So all of that is not included. Oh, I didn't even update this slide. So ignore it because you've seen it before anyways. So first draft, this is where we're at. Again, this is expenses. It doesn't net out the revenues yet. The budget after the final vote last year for the central office was $13,025,000. This budget is a proposal of $13,858,000, which is an increase of 6.4%. So to help you kind of contextualize that, 1% of the budget is $130,000. Salaries, that's interesting. We can talk a little bit. Every contract is under negotiations right now. So there is a placeholder in there for salary increases, and that throughout the whole budget accounts to $498,000 or about $500,000. And benefits, I think you've heard me talk about the health insurance going up 11.9. That's the biggest piece of that $288,000. It is other things too, like the FICA and all those other things, but it's significantly the health insurance. And just to remind you, the health insurance benefit for a family plan that we pay is $32,757. And on top of that, if you are a licensed professional, we pay $4,000 for your health reimbursement account. And if you are unlicensed or support staff, we pay $4,400 into that. So in addition to the 32, we pay that additional $4,000 to $4,400. Then we looked at all of the, so when you add those together, they're the biggest significant point of our increases, is the salaries and benefits. We did add one position. We have added a data manager into the technology budget for data processing. The total cost, including benefits, because at this point we do assume a family plan, so it does include that almost $40,000 for health insurance. It's based on an $80,000 salary. It's $130,000 or approximately 1% of our budget. Special education is probably one of the hardest budgets to really kind of dig into because it's so complex. It is so student-driven, and honestly, it changes and is fluid with the student needs. So, when we budget for all of our other programs, we budget for X number of teachers, we don't add a classroom during the middle of the year. But with special education, we might add a paraeducator, we might add a program, we might add an out-of-district placement, because that's either the student who is new to us or the student's needs have changed and become something that we have to address. So I try to kind of look at it from an FTE perspective. So that first little grid is identifying that we are actually going down just approximately 3 FTEs in special education. And so I try to break it down between administration, paraprofessional, which would include one-to-one, program or intervention specialists, speech language pathologist, that's what SLP is. We also have a SLP aide, so she can't do the services of a speech pathologist, but has advanced training in speech. Teachers are our special educators. Transportation are our drivers and bus monitors, and none of them are really one. They're all little pieces added together. So the grand total of our K-12 special education FTE last year was 81.47. This year it is 78. One less teacher, almost 2 less paraprofessionals. And then this little grid on the bottom just shows you what the salary changes are. Now remember that the salary in the fiscal year 25 adopted budget amount are based on the staff that were employed last year. The budget that is in the proposed amount is based on the current staff that we have, plus any openings that we have, and a projection on what next year's contracts and salaries will be settled at. So this is taking a look at that budget in a different way. The first 2 lines were what we had already talked about. So object is, what are you buying with your money? So we're buying salaries, benefits, professional services. And as you can see, as you go down, none of them really change significantly. There is an increase down there for bus leases. So last year, you may recall, we have approximately 30 buses, and we tend to run them for about 10 years. We have like 28 buses. So we tend to run them for 10 years, and we finance them over 7 years. So we get kind of that 3 years for free, if you will. Last year, we proposed replacing 2. So we are proposing in this budget to replace 3, but a bus lease is coming off. So we're trying to match the bus leases coming off with new buses going on, but knowing that the bus lease that is coming off, the bus cost $80,000, and now they cost $110,000. Yes, they are not inexpensive vehicles. And so this budget is the same numbers, just looking at it from the program, if you will, or the function. So that first line, that direct instruction, that's those students that are regular ed students. They are not identified as having a special education disability. They're not on an IEP, but they have some extraordinary costs. We had 2 of them leave the district, so woo-hoo. And we are projecting 1 next year, so you can see that decrease. The next one is all special education. So that $546,000 increase is salaries, benefits, other out-of-district placements, transportation, supplies of, just so you know, is about $35,000, so it's not very much. But that's everything else to do with direct instruction, special education. And then kind of going down to the other big one, which is fiscal services and technology. So here's another warning here. So in that budget, in that number, is the new $130,000 data position. And it also includes increases for our software and our hardware based on what we're seeing. One was 5%, one was 10% on average. What is not included in here is if any tariffs are passed under the new presidency in the new election. If that were to happen, as been prophesized, we would be looking at another $90,000 in expenses if tariffs were to be charged. So kind of again, kind of telling you who we are and what services we provide. Technology includes one director, Alexis Blake, 4 technicians, one who is here with us today, Colby Case, a part-time college intern, which is how Colby started, and the new data manager. Just a reminder, we are in the 3rd year of our replacement schedule, and with COVID, we did initiate or dive into a 1-to-1. So now we're, kind of in that schedule of always replacing those pieces of equipment. And again, just a reminder, it doesn't include tariffs. That is something that we didn't think you should include when it hasn't happened yet. But if it does, we'll certainly report it. The board is you all, includes resources and training. It includes negotiations. And to be honest with you, I leveled it because I'm very optimistic we're going to negotiate this year and not have any carryover, but I don't know. Legal services, again, that's policy review usually. Honorariums, and there's essentially no changes to that department. The superintendent includes the superintendent, human resource coordinator, executive assistant to the superintendent, and the communications coordinator. The business office, again, no programmatic or staffing changes. It's myself, assistant director, 2 bookkeepers, and a payroll coordinator. And of the 2 bookkeepers, we also have, it's a part-time receptionist too, but I just called her a bookkeeper for ease. Special services are the most fluid component of the budget where staffing will fluctuate and adjust to student needs. So just a little bit, this is the information, again, not included in this budget, but something that we manage and pass through to the local budgets. These are the things that we had talked about, the facility manager, which is a piece of Rich, a piece of a maintenance person, and administrative assistant. Then there's the pre-K programs, ELL or ML, multilingual learners, a teacher for that support. The librarian, world languages, which is shared between Barstow and Honor Valley, and then transportation services that are beyond to and from school. So that's where Stafford and the late run and field trips, et cetera. And homeless child transportation. So just a reminder, we do have a policy that says how we will assess the member districts, and it is based on the Agency of Education's child count, which will be the Act 127 long-term weighted average at the end, as of December 31st. And our policy specifies a date, because in the past, sometimes those haven't been finalized until well beyond the time we have to adopt the budget, so the schools need something to move forward with. And it has not been done yet because we have a lot of revenue to put off against these expenses. That's it. Clear as mud, right? You do great.
So, in terms of federal dollars, is FY '26 set in stone, or can the incoming administration make changes that are unexpected?
So so this budget includes no federal dollars or federally funded employees, because those numbers, the 700, the 107, the 150, 190, those won't be finalized until April. So it won't be until then that those become filled, that those positions become finalized.
I didn't hear you say anything about the safety director, but I also didn't see that you had him on your list anywhere.
That position is grant funded,
Still, for next year?
if the grant comes through.
Okay. So it is not part of the budget currently?
Correct, not this year or next year.
Okay.
It's all Brian's fault.
All my fault. Can't see the future.
I had a question asked of me, and I think I answered it correctly, but I'm gonna defer to you, and we'll say it here so that maybe other people will hear it too, but, it's been asked of me, if we have less kids riding buses, why aren't we buying smaller buses? And I believe the answer is that because those small buses cost just as much or more than the big bus that we currently are purchasing and using.
Right, the differential between how much they cost and even how much they are to operate is really, really small, and how much they can then compromise our ability to do things like field trips. Because you're right, there may be less people on the buses every day, but when there's a field trip, the whole class is going, or the whole, grade clusters are going, and we need to.
Teams are going.
Teams are going, thank you.
Okay.
I will say that with COVID, we saw a really big decline in ridership, and we're starting to see it increase again. But it's no secret, I listened to the report last night too, we have less students, so we do have less riders. We always look to see if there's a way to combine routes or change. One thing I forgot to tell you that is included in this budget is $50,000 as a placeholder for added transportation, because we're looking at creative ways to sneak more education minutes into our school day. And, kind of looking at it decades after we implemented K-12 busing, we realized the consequence of implementing K-12 busing, where everything starts, so the last students to arrive are high school students, and the first students to leave are high school students. So we are looking at whether we can consider differences in transportation that might allow us to squeeze in a few more minutes of valuable education time. Not extending teacher contracts.
Yeah.
The IT position that's on there, is that a new position, or is that one of the ones that we had eliminated last year, or is this in?
This is a really good question. Last year, we had talked about having basically a help desk position that we did eliminate. This position is a data manager. It's a completely different position with different goals. But its main goal, and I'll let Renee speak to it, but we want to make sure our data is clean. And because a lot of our data and our systems were set up when we were independent districts versus when we were merged, we don't necessarily do everything the same way. So when we are looking at things, we may not be seeing what we think we're seeing.
So I think the long and the short of it is, the cleaner our data is, the more accurate reports that we can give to the AOE, and the more accurate monies that we get back from them. But the side benefit is, we make sure that all the student information that is available within our system, that teachers and principals will have access to. And there's also all kinds of nuances where, since there's a lot of fields within PowerSchool, if there's something that comes up with, there's, I guess, a bigger family, and so some people have access, other people don't have access. It's really important for us to have common systems across the supervisory union, because like Brenda said, we're still kind of existing on the way things were done when we had multiple districts. And the sooner that we can get all of our information, or be faithful within all of our information, the sooner we'll be able to do a lot of things much more streamlined.
Are any of our current positions not filled at RNESU currently?
So there are in special education, and that is why you are seeing some reduction in special education. The one position that's not full that comes to mind that's, we've advertised and we don't anticipate we'd be able to find it anyways, is another speech language pathologist focused, we had intended in early ed, but that position's been removed. We do still have 3 open paraeducator positions that are in the budget. You know, between now and next month, maybe they will come to fruition and they'll be updated for new people. But those are the only open positions that are in this budget. And those are people we're actively looking for right now.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say successful, so if anyone knows someone. The ad is on School Spring.
Things that we eliminated from the budget last year, because, such as repairs and maintenance, things like that, was that added back into this new budget? I'm thinking specifically about the repair and maintenance that you had wanted to do on the end of, central office where the, pavement was rocky, and we had also talked about grants as well, but I just didn't know what was going on with that.
Yes and no. So what I do when we look at the central office facilities budget, I look at a 2-year average.
Okay.
And I base it based on that. So yes, I did push it back up from that reduction.
Okay. But not to where it was in the,
Not to where it was,
Okay.
not fully, because now we're moving.
it was just an idea, it didn't say.
I've already picked out
I know,
curtains.
right? My goodness, my goodness. It hasn't even been 24 hours and she's already got her.
IKEA
Yeah.
this weekend.
IKEA. No, I'm going to New England Woodcraft.
There you
you
go,
go.
that's right. Okay. Questions for Brenda or Renee at this point? The only question that I'm hesitant to ask, but I think needs to be asked, is that we keep hearing about central office being top heavy, that we're spending too much there. And I did beg off to people that we were waiting for a new superintendent and pushed it off to you. So I guess I want to ask that question now, so that as people start asking us, you know, if we're looking at a 6.4% increase in this budget, you know, that includes everybody that's currently here other than Tyler's position. Okay. Okay.
So I would just, I'd like to respond in that. That's a question that we're getting a lot at our events that we're hosting.
Okay.
And, I mean, my response has been, we're happy to explain what each one of us does, because there are very few of us. The supervisory unions are designed to be very, I would say that we're not top-heavy, and I guess people, you know, will think differently. But if you were to eliminate, I'll go back to that slide. I'm not sure where you would go to eliminate any one of these positions and then still have a functioning school district or a
Okay.
supervisory union. The final total for the budget is, if we had all of our budgets listed together, is what again?
Oh, wow, you're really taxing.
It's like
me.
40, correct?
Oh, yes.
It's like 40. So a $40 million budget with with nearly 500 employees, 400 employees, plus our consumers are with us. If this was an organization or a company in Vermont, I don't think they would have such a small leadership team. And certainly they wouldn't have 3 people in the business office.
Okay.
So those are, since people want to have school districts run like a business frequently, if those are the examples that we want to, address, then we will start looking for businesses in Vermont that have, I guess, compositions like that, and we will report out how many people they have.
No, I think it's just good that we have that kind of knowledge behind us, so that we can answer that question.
The other thing that I found it, I need to find it again, is that there is a ratio that national, the National Council of Educational Statistics has run, and Vermont has a very low, and I'll find it so I can bring it and provide it at the next meeting.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. I was one of the voices last year saying that we had to hold the line on central office. And the metaphor in my head is not businesses, it's universities. And I can tell you that, and you would remember too with your experience in universities, that the administrative creep compared to the number of faculty and students, that ratio is way out of whack in universities and hasn't been good for them, in my opinion. And that's something that I worry about in primary and secondary education as well.
Yeah, I agree. If the creep wasn't given to us by the state to have to do food, to have to do mental health, to have to provide transportation, to have to make sure that we are absolutely perfect on our reports for special education and all other grants, then I would agree with you. But as the state and the federal government have really imposed many more requirements of a school district, it'd be great if we could just focus on teaching and learning. But there are a lot more things that we have to do now, and unfortunately that requires additional eyes, additional hands, and certainly additional ears to hear from students and from families. So, all we can do is put it out there and see if people agree with us.
Thanks.
I think one of the things that I always struggle with is it's easy to assume central office is administrative functions. But if you were to go to the slide on special education, for example, you'll see that the one that has kind of the funny 2 little grids on it, you'll see that administration is like
I have no idea what she's talking about.
and the rest is.
No, it's the one with the 2 little grids.
I can't, let me know when you get it.
One more.
Right
you
there.
go. So, I know, it's
Right
so
there.
touchy. So you'll see administration of 3.9 also 78. So I understand it, but I think people tend to just say, oh, well, that's all administration. It's not. The special educators and the paraeducators and the bus drivers are not doing administrative duties. They're not doing administrative tasks.
Can I speak to the psychologist as well?
Yeah, they're also not doing
So,
administrative.
and if you're not aware, I moved the psychologists to building-based from central office, putting some of our most knowledgeable professionals in the buildings, having campuses have access to them, whereas they were at central office before doing their function, which was great, but now they are more accessible. So we are thinking about our contact with the campuses and our impact on the campuses, and I have some very good feedback on that move from both the psychologist team and from administrators. So we are thinking about that.
And then, Brian, don't forget that you have a really wacky superintendent who's requiring that there be an administrator in every IEP meeting.
Yep,
So
that's Elliot.
they're making sure that we are doing what's right for kids, what's right with families, and for the school district, which means that now your and the supervisor's time are being, I've increased the amount of time that you are family-facing, and meaning that you can't do other things that you have to be razor focused on for compliance. But it's what's right for kids.
And those relationships with families is a priority of our department. I'll speak to what we're doing in special education in December, and we'll talk more about that. But I wanted to tell you all about that if you hadn't heard about the psychologist move and some of the changes in special education with the placements.
Great. Any other questions for Brenda or Renee at this point? We will look at this budget one more time in December. We will have to vote on this budget in November, or December, excuse me. Good Lord. It's like I was in a car accident this morning. I was.
You were?
Yes, I was. That's why I'm all banked up. But anyway,
I wasn't driving.
no, you were not. No, my son was. We hit black ice. Anyway.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
Don't tell me that.
I'm getting a new car though. All right. So anyway,
So we have
We're
three
fine.
meetings, we have 3 meetings in December. 2 meetings.
For RNESU, we'll have one meeting.
Okay.
And we will approve this budget at that meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So, so if you guys have any questions in the meantime, shoot them to me. I can shoot them to Brenda or Renee, and try and keep us all updated. Otherwise, we'll see what happens. Okay?
Thanks for putting this together, Brenda.
All right. So, there's nothing else on our agenda other than to say that, our next meeting is December 18th here at 5 o'clock. And so I don't believe we need executive session. So I would, accept a motion to adjourn.
Yep, I move we adjourn.
All right. We are adjourning at, gosh, look at how good we are. 5:58. All right. Thank you very much.